Hi, everyone. I am so glad you could join us today. We are going to have a conversation about the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. And I have enjoyed having this kind of conversation, webinars with many organizations, individual leaders across New York City, across the country, sharing a little bit about my own personal experience getting my loans forgiven a few weeks ago, and hopefully can share information that helps you out, or at least satisfies some of your curiosity as well. I'm calling this presentation today the sweet sound of waiver. The Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program has been around for a while, but there is a very important, very short-term and quickly ending waiver to that program that makes really significant changes. And those changes allowed me to get my loans forgiven and may do the same for you. I really have two goals, and it's kind of a give and a get. I am just personally energized and interested, and I want to share information. So my goal is to get you curious and engaged enough that by the end of this conversation, you want to check out studentaid.gov. That's the official website of the US government, PSLF, and figure out if you are truly eligible and start moving through the process. But in exchange, I hope that you will tell everyone you know. I think loan forgiveness has a huge potential for social impact, huge anti-poverty potential. There are millions of Americans, low-wage human service workers, folks working for nonprofits, childcare agencies, government jobs, crossing guards, military veterans, who are eligible for this support and don't know about it. And if we don't let them know before October, it may slip away forever. So I'm also asking that you help us spread the word. About me, my name is Rich Limesider. If there was a drink, it would be lime cider. I've worked for nonprofits and government my whole life. Most recently, I was the executive director of a terrific organization in New York called Safe Passage Project, provides free lawyers to about 1,400 children who are getting deported from the New York City area. And I have been the beneficiary of really terrific and very expensive higher education. And until 3 weeks ago, I had a lot of student debt. But because of this public service loan forgiveness program and the special waiver, all of that debt was forgiven. And so I have to say, first I was sort of suspicious it was going to happen. I was then surprised and delighted when I looked online and my amount of student debt was zero. But ultimately, I'm a little angry. I'm angry that those millions of folks who really could use loan forgiveness don't know about it. And I want to put a little energy and activity into seeing that we can spread the word. If you want to learn more about me, you can find me on LinkedIn. So the presentation today is going to be split into two parts. This first video, should be about 6 or 7 minutes, is about the PSLF program itself. And then if you continue on, you'll see with literally screenshots from my own student loan accounts, how I went through the application process. And I think that should overlap 90–95% with your own process. If you're interested in pursuing student loan forgiveness, what I went through should be pretty close to what you might need to as well. The program, Public Service Loan Forgiveness, I call it the original recipe version. It was created in 2007 with all of the best intent, for sure. The idea was anyone who works 10 years for government or nonprofit, defined pretty broadly: Peace Corps, AmeriCorps, military, cops, teachers, firefighters, legislative aides, nonprofit health, home care workers. If you do 10 years, everything that's left on your student loans gets forgiven. And the way the government describes it, it's always been described as reaching 120 qualifying payments. So it's almost like, can you find 120 months that count? They never had to be consecutive. If you did 2 years here and took time off with family, went back in 3 years in government, and then worked in the private sector, but came back to nonprofit, as long as you strung together 120 qualifying periods, you would count for loan forgiveness. The problem is there were a number of restrictions on the way the program was designed that made it so difficult to access. After 14 years and literally millions of people who should have been eligible, only 16,000 ever got loan forgiveness. And this is all sort of easily Googleable. You can find these statistics online, but nobody got it. And we'll talk about why as we talk about the waiver. So if the original program was original recipe, I kind of think of the waiver as extra spicy, right? The waiver was implemented by President Biden's executive order in 2021. The way I understand it is that there were certain extraordinary powers that he had due to the COVID bailout, and he was able to issue an executive order that eliminated a lot of the small, essentially nitpicking restrictions that prevented so many of us from getting loan forgiveness. So I will say my own story. I had known about the original program for years. In 2018, I applied for loan forgiveness. I had done my 10 years. I was told that because I hadn't organized the paperwork properly on day one back in 2007, that none of my 10 years, none of my 120 months of public service counted towards the program. I was rejected for loan forgiveness in 2018, and I was told that they would gladly start the clock at zero, and I would be eligible in 2028. Well, part of the reason they did that is under the original rules, you had to pay it back within a certain loan plan, within a certain payment type. And once you did those things, they would never look back and give you credit for old periods. So if you checked in on the program 7 years or 10 years in and hadn't done some of those original paperwork requirements, they started you at zero. One of the most amazing things about this waiver, and this is what changed things for me, is if you go set things up properly now, as long as you do it before October 31st, they will look back and give you credit for all of your prior periods. They will even give you credit during this waiver period for times when you weren't able to make the full payment, or maybe you made no payment at all. In fact, over the past 2.5 years, nobody's made any payments for student loans because they've all been in deferral due to the COVID crisis. Well, these most recent 27 months that none of us have been paying student loans, even these 27 months will count towards your 120 as long as you've been working for a nonprofit. In fact, payback for overpayment is even possible. When the government got around to counting my credits, they found out that I had actually done 134 payments instead of the 120 that were required by law. They went and paid me back 14 months of student loans because of that overpayment. The big catch from the government, and of course there has to be a catch, is that this entire program, the waiver anyway, expires on October 31st, 2022. So we all have to get our paperwork in within the next few months, or we might not be able to take advantage of these special opportunities. So in summary, if you were rejected in the past, you might want to try again, like me. If you didn't think you qualified and knew about the program, now might be the time to check it out. Certainly, if you've made 120 payments or you've worked for nonprofits for around 10 years since you've had student loans, you should go for it. But I want to point out that even if you've only been out of school for 3 or 4 years, even if you've only worked for government or nonprofits for 3 or 4 years, you absolutely want to get your paperwork into the system now during the waiver period so that you get credit for all of these months that the waiver allows credit for. In other words, if you just got out of school 4 years ago, but you haven't applied or put your paperwork into the public service loan forgiveness system, as of November 1st, you will have 0 credits towards your 120. But if you get your paperwork going now, you will get credit for those past 4 years. And by the time you get to November, you'll have 50 or more credits towards your 120. Your loan forgiveness will come 6 years from now instead of 10 years from now. So even for those of us who don't have the 10 years, it's worth getting into action. So again, as a reminder, I had 2 goals for today, a give and a get. This is part A of our presentation. We'll wrap up in a minute, but if you already feel ready to go check out studentaid.gov, go for it. Go right now. If you want to see exactly how I went through it, you can stay tuned and watch the next video, which is also about 5 or 6 minutes. And please do tell somebody, tell your colleagues, tell the HR department where you work. If you feel like phoning a congressperson, go for it. But help us spread the word on social media through direct interactions that this is an amazing opportunity for millions of Americans, billions of dollars worth of debt relief. and we need to take advantage of it as soon as we can. Thank you so much.